You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello, Miss Carol. How's it going over there? Yeah. The weather is a big topic these days, and we have no control over it, and I'm sure you're well aware of the things you cannot control. Well, yeah, that is true. I have had some problems with that prison. The biggest one is that I was approved for a marriage, and they're doing everything they possibly can to stop it. And it's exciting for me because it gives me an opportunity to learn some new tactics and to be able to help other people in positions very similar to mine. And the state has certain qualifications for marriage, and we meet all of those qualifications, and so there is no reason to block our marriage. So to forbid me from speaking to my fiancée, it's a delay, which I expect from these guys. I expect them to do everything they possibly can to stop me, but all it does is slows me down. As long as I'm within policy regulations and the law, I'm fine. So it's going to take a little while, but I'm a patient person, and I'll just wait it through. And for me, I have things that can comfort me. I can talk to people, and I can get support, and I can gain some more support. So on the outs, it's not as impactful as it is when you're in lockup. My fiancée is probably going through a lot more mental anguish than I am, because she's unable to find out what's going on out here, and she really doesn't know what's going on in there. I can contact people, a lot more people than she can, and get answers or get support. And I know that's frustrating for her. And if something were to happen, if she were to attack somebody and get put in seg, it's easy to use this as an excuse because she's just frustrated that she has to go through all this extra stress over nothing. And that's good defense. So as long as we're building up something that we can use against them in the future, I'm making progress. The only way I would feel sad about the situation I'm going through is if I just stop. Yep, and that's the mantra. You don't lose until you give up. Once you start a fight with somebody, continue it on. It's like that old samurai thing. Once a samurai pulls a sword out, it means somebody's going to die. And once you start a fight with the Department of Corrections, you keep going until you get your way or you're proven wrong. And the way to avoid being proven wrong is just to do your research before you get into the fight. Look at laws, consult people, ask questions, look at past situations. Maybe you're reading the newspaper or looking online and you see somebody a few years ago or maybe even just days ago ran into a similar situation. And there are news reports.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
That come up, and I read some stuff on federal prisons, and I actually saw a report on the local news about jails and what the DOC is doing to alleviate some of those issues. So it's really nice to know that we've got a lot of support out here. And that's why you guys need to really build up some supportive relationships, because it does make a difference. But never, ever give up.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Oh, I know. I've heard about your reputation. You're a tough one. I just don't want people retaliating against my loved ones. Because once I get this bad reputation and they say, you're not supposed to talk to this person and give them infractions if they reach out to me, that's not what I want. I will stay away from anybody in there, keep them from getting an infraction or going into the SAG or having their privileges revoked.
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I'm your host, Joel Wilborn. And this episode is based on this call in particular because I am running into a current issue of trying to marry my fiancée. We've already got everything established, all of the paperwork done, and we've been approved for it. And the superintendent over at that prison, which is the Washington Correction Center for Women, is the one who's holding it back. And our marriage isn't the most popular one because I am a prison advocate and I do specifically target the Washington Correction Center for Women, and I will not hold that back. I consider that prison to be the worst in the state, and people there are subjected to unnecessary dangers and hardships. I've been dealing with them for years, over a decade, and I really want this stuff to stop. So I specifically target that facility. So I can see them considering me as a bad guy, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. Now, with this, in the state of Washington, there's certain requirements for marriage. We meet all of those. If I go down to apply for a marriage license, they're not going to ask me, is your fiance or the intended spouse incarcerated or been convicted of any crimes? Now, this is stuff that doesn't matter. What does matter is the age, mental state. Either one of us are married, and those could put a stop to the marriage. In some cases, it could be overcome. You know, if I'm married and I want to marry somebody, I could get a divorce. Or if they're saying that the person that I want to marry isn't of sound mind, maybe the person had a terrible accident or something and is not really thinking straight, we could probably get a doctor to care for this person and get the person back into the right state of mind. But not all of it, and especially with age. You know, if a person's 17 years old, we could wait a year till the person's 18. So there's a few things that can be overcome. But marriage is a right in the United States, in every state. And it's not something that we really consider as an obstacle like it was 100 years ago where people of mixed race couldn't get married. So getting approval from the state isn't an issue. And if the Department of Corrections decides they want to stop it, I can easily get legal representation for that because it's a constitutional right. And in this particular case, we went through the process, and all we need now is just a date to get married. And there's two ways to get married, in person or a virtual ceremony. And with the Washington Correction Center for Women, the officials told her they didn't approve this marriage, but there was nothing they could do to stop it. And she's ready to go. She's excited. This is good for her. It's good for me. And it helps me have a little more access to her so that if she does have any medical issues or she has some complaints about treatment, as a spouse, I have a little more leeway than as a friend. Right now I have to go through her brother, her mother, her adopted mother. There's several relatives I can talk to. And fortunately, the DOC doesn't believe that I am in communication with supportive relationships. So while they're stopping me from doing all this stuff, I'm doing what they have no idea that I'm doing, and that's working with other people outside of my family and my own support group that's directly related to her that could get these things done. There are times I'll ask about somebody, and they'll say, well, only an immediate relative could ask that or get that information. As a spouse, I can get that stuff, and I can really offer her more help, and I can give her the support she needs when she gets out. So there's a lot of advantages to me being her spouse. So I'm going to do everything humanly possible to make sure that I can get this marriage to go through. It's advantageous to both of us. And so waiting for this superintendent, who obviously doesn't want us to get married, to approve this, either the in-person or the virtual. Now this superintendent has managed to block me from visiting, which makes it difficult to get married in person. So virtual ceremony is the best one. But somehow this superintendent, who is Charlotte Headley, managed to block my Securus, which is email messaging. So I can't do a virtual visit with her to get married, and I can't do an in-person. But I can get married. I've already been approved for that. I just need the date. It's kind of humorous to think that they would go through something like this, thinking that it's going to work and thinking that I'm just going to say, oh, well, I better wait till she gets out, because that's not the way I work. I've made it known that I will fight everything that is illegal that these folks do. And I do that because these people will do whatever they can, well, not necessarily whatever they can, but whatever they want, because we don't fight it. And years ago, there was legislation out there, and they had an actual group that would oversee the prisons, but they disbanded that and just canceled the whole thing altogether. It was nice because it was like an ombudsman. They could go to these people and get disputes resolved, and these people were supposed to be an oversight committee for them to view the actions of the Department of Corrections. But they feel that there's certain things that goes on in there that they don't want the public to know, and they're hiding them from it. I've actually seen emails where I would ask for information, and the person would tell other folks in the email, I know this information, but I'm not going to share it with him, which is withholding public information, which is illegal in the state of Washington. But reading these emails, I get that paper trail, which is extremely important when fighting these folks. You want a paper trail. And so I have this really nice paper trail for this marriage thing, and I just need to bring it to the public's attention, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm giving you some insight on how you can deal with things like this if you run across them, because I've run across a lot of this stuff already, and I've learned different tactics, and I've got a lot of experience in it. And then once you gain experience, you can share it with people too. And eventually, these little things they think are going to work won't. And the biggest thing they like to use is ignoring folks. And so, of course, I'm asking, why are you doing this? And I'm getting the classic, plain dumb, just ignoring me. I'm guessing it's to deal with something in the past, but when I asked for why my JPay account was blocked, they referred me to archives. Now, if you're using a current block on somebody, you don't dig into the past. It's like saying locomotives are not allowed to travel through the city during working hours. An old law. Or like working on a Sunday or spitting on the sidewalk. These are still active laws, but they're just, they don't apply to today. So you need to go back and get rid of them. With an archive, their use is gone. They're historical now. They go back into the vaults. They get packed away. Anything current, that's like a public record that was put in there within the last 6 months or so. That's what you use. You anything that's not in the archives. So when I'm asked a question, why are you doing this? And they refer me to the archives, that immediately tells me something's not right. Why would you refer to historical documents for a current event? If it was so important, they could keep it out of archives and keep it in my file. And when I request it, it could be a current file. Something, and with policies, they update them once in a while. And you could go online and look up something that would say last updated, 24 hours ago or last week. And that gives you an idea that it's current. But to refer me to an archive, it's just comical. So it's a very sad tactic. And it goes to show they haven't been paying attention to this thing. So I don't think I'm ever going to get an answer as to why they're blocking my account. but I have the paper trail. And when you send out an email, and you have every right to ask questions, you can ask, why are you doing this? And if it's ignored, your evidence is that you sent this email. So if you go to court, you want to show the judge as many documents as you possibly can. And if you got 20 emails asking the same question, and I've done this before in court, the judge will look to the defendant, which will be the Department of Corrections, and ask, why did you ignore this? And the answer is going to be really interesting and help you go into your new direction, because the current direction isn't working, so you have to try to change your tactics. What could the DLC possibly say? A reasonable excuse will be accepted by the judge. Now, if you're asking for somebody to contact you daily in the condition of your loved one, and then they're just not answering that, the judge could come back and say, what you're asking for is unreasonable, and I can understand them ignoring it because no matter what answer they would give, you wouldn't accept it and you'd keep going. So their goal would be to stop you from sending emails, but no matter what answer they give you, it won't stop. That's reasonable. But we have courts so we can make arguments, we can debate, so that we can give our side and we can rebuttal the other side. And with your documentation, that's good. The fact that they ignore you is evidence. We're not looking for a response. We're looking for evidence when we send these things out. I suggest that when you do send an email out, and usually it's to a general email box, put a carbon copy of your address in there. You can do a blind carbon copy or you can do a regular carbon copy. But send the email to yourself. Even in the main recipient, in the to box, you can put to Department of Corrections and to your email. Make sure you get a copy. That way, if they respond to all, you'll get a copy too. I really suggest the BCC because they don't know you're on it, so they can't chop you out of it when they send a response. And all of these responses and all the emails you send to them are evidence. And if they send an answer and it's reasonable, you can accept it. Time to move on. There's no need to fight the government when the government's doing what it's supposed to do, because that's what we want. We're only going to fight them when they ignore us or when we feel that our loved one is in danger. And I give this advice to everybody. When a person is in jail, getting ready to go to prison, get a medical person on your team, get a legal person on your team. If you can get other inmates, prison officials on your team, maybe probation officers, parole officers, anybody that could vouch for them. When I went to federal prison to vouch for somebody, we were getting ready to get up and give our speeches on why we felt this person needed to be released. And the judge said, because you all are in there, because you care, it shows that there's some support. And that's what I care about. Judges do actually care. They want the person to get out and never go back. And having a great support team does that. The fact that the DOC is blocking people's support team goes to show they don't care about people committing a crime and going back. And when people are desperate, they don't care what the prison conditions were like. I mean, it could be very bad prison conditions, but with no support group, they'll go in there and say, well, I just have to accept it. And with minorities, we get that a lot. As a black man walking down the street, there's a chance I could be pulled over by or stopped by a police officer because of the fact that I'm black. And I could be with a white person and get pulled over because I'm with a white person. And I'm used to that. I'm used to being harassed. I'm used to being stopped. I'm used to being questioned. It just happens. And when you go to prison a number of times, you're used to the bad treatment. It's just more or less like, I'm going to prison tomorrow and they're going to treat me like I'm worthless. I'm used to that. And once a person builds up that tolerance, then what? What kind of attack can you do on them? It's like the kamikaze pilot. No matter what you do, that person is prepared to die. You cannot beat that person. There's no way to win against the kamikaze pilot. There's no way to win against a career criminal. They know what the prison system is like. They expect it. If you treat them nice, they're going to pretty much be vocal about it. What just happened? So that's not a tactic that works with prisons. And With us, it's a tactic that can be used against the prison because they're mistreating people in there. An attorney won't take on a case unless it involves death or chronic illness or something. If your loved one goes in there and dies, there's very little research that needs to be done to prove that the person died in prison. We get the autopsy report, and maybe the person didn't get any medicine that was needed, or maybe the person was beat severely. There's the cause of death could be your number one bit of evidence, and an attorney will take that. But if it requires a lot of research, a lot of background work, they're less likely to take it. So you're going to have to do all the work yourself. If you want a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and you want to win that lawsuit, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to do a lot of work. You walk into the legal office, you pop down a pile of emails, responses, policies. The attorney's more likely to take that case than if you just walk in there and say, this is the problem I'm having, what can you do for me? That, if you pay for it, is going to cost quite a bit. Now, we are allowing way too much to go on in there, so we need to band together. ACLU is good for the civil, and there are a lot of legal agencies that you can go to online, and you can find them, and they will give you support. I did get a response once to a letter, but I had to really fight to get it, and it was one of the nicest responses I've ever received from DOC. It showed that my work was worthwhile. It was like a pat on the back. And that's the one that referred to the archive. But they were saying I did a good job on helping people, because that's what I do. I work with supportive relationships, which they deny. I help people, which they deny. To block my email, there's no reason for it. They're saying multiple policy, but that was 6 years ago. And the policies they refer to have changed. The conditions have changed. The contractor has changed. So things change by the day, well, by the year pretty much. And so we have to keep up with that. So when you're doing your research, try to find the most relevant stuff, updated stuff, and read through things. I know when we want to sign up for a social media thing like maybe X, you have to agree to their terms. And a lot of that stuff is that we'll share your information and we'll block these certain things. But you have to go zip, 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 you go through there and just sign it, and you get it. And then if something pops up, it's more like, well, you agreed to it. And to get a free service is not really free, like they say. You have to give up some stuff to get onto social media. And a lot of people they don't have any problems with that. But when the legal aspect comes around, it's like, well, I should never sign that. But in cases with the DOC and state agencies, you can read through their policies. You can read through the laws. And you can learn your rights. And you can even go online and do AI researches. AI is really good because it can research specific things quickly and at least point you in the right direction. And you learn as you're reading. This is a win-win situation. And then you have to be set on what you want. So when you go against the DOC, what do you want? I ask, I don't want fluffy pillows or I don't want carpeted rooms. I want you to follow policy. I want you to follow the law. That's my goal. And I'll tell them that. I'll even quote the law. And when I file complaints, I say, I want them to follow the law. That's a good defense. And ignoring a person is not following the law. Because I'm asking a question, I'm asking for assistance, I'm not getting it. And as a state official, it's like when you see a cop car going around to protect and to serve. A state official is to serve. They're supposed to tell you the truth. They're supposed to provide you with the service that we pay them for. That's what government people do. I spent 4 years in college learning about the government. Government serves the people. And when we elect an official, they should say, I want to represent you. That's what a representative means. I want your matters to be put before Congress so that we can get a resolution for any issues that we have out there or make any changes to improve things. They want public safety. They want to serve the public. Ignoring you isn't doing that. So you immediately got a big defense right there. They're not performing their duty as required by law by ignoring me. Just to give you a heads up here. whenever you send an email out, blind copy yourself. Get as much support from professionals as you possibly can. And silence means that it's evidence that can be used against them should you go to court. And with lawyers, you really got to give them as much information you possibly can so that their work is minimized. It takes time, it takes effort, but it can be done. Don't give up. Never give up. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day. So go out and make beautiful memories for tomorrow.